Welcome to the Raw Spotlight podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders in the B2B space and share their unique stories. Let's get started with the show.
Today, we're diving into the branding strategy and impact behind Metro Micro, an on-demand public transportation initiative by Los Angeles Metro. We'll break down how Ready Artwork helped shape this innovative service with a digital-first approach to transit marketing. Welcome to the Raw Spotlight, where we explore leadership, entrepreneurship, and digital marketing. I'm Emily Au, co-founder of Ready Artwork, joined by my business partner, Victor Huynh. In this series, we'll share insights on growing a business, the evolution of digital marketing, and key strategies for success. Past episodes include our deep dive into Go Monrovia initiative, where we explored integrating rideshare and micro mobility into public systems. So get comfortable, settle in, and be ready to be inspired. Before we start, I have a sponsor message. This episode is brought to you by Ready Artwork, a website-first digital marketing agency focused on long-term growth. Our proven 7-step website blueprint is the heart of everything we do, designed to build high-performing, lead-generating websites. Want a full breakdown? Check out our episode on the 7-step blueprint and visit readyartwork.com to learn more. Joining me today and always, my co-host and business partner, Victor Huynh, from our garage startup days to leading one of LA's top website and digital marketing agency. Victor has been the forefront of transforming businesses through smart branding, web design, and digital strategy. We had a great conversation last week, Victor, so I'm excited to continue it today. Let's dive in. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in again.
Yeah, so I have a lot of questions from a lot of clients, friends, family that ask about how we were involved in Metro Micro. It was a pilot program. So I'm excited to talk about this. So Victor, how did LA Metro first approach Ready Artwork about this Metro Micro project?
Yeah, so for those that are, that might not be aware, Metro is referring to the LA Metro system, buses, rail, public transportation in Los Angeles County. And it is the second largest in the United States, second to New York Metro, right? So LA Metro found us from what we talked about in the previous episode with the Monrovia, Go Monrovia, the transportation program that we collaborated with our local city. And it was really interesting because after that successful launch, we actually got a lot of free press. There were national news outlets that were covering this story. And our partners over at the city of Monrovia were very generous with, sharing credit, although it was a collaborative project. They made sure, the management made sure that, they put out there that, hey, Ready Artwork was actually really instrumental in the building and the success of this transit, micro transit program. So I really want to thank, the city of Monrovia. We'll give them a shout out and tag them on this. But yeah, so we got a lot of free press, we got a lot of coverage, and most importantly, we had a case study on our website, right? So we had a very detailed case study explaining our journey, our process, and it was public. Obviously, we do we do SEO, so we had to do SEO on our own website as well. One of the tech partners that were bidding on this Metro Micro project, and this was before even the name was established, right? Mm-hmm. They heard about this successful project. It was at the time it was the most successful microtransit launch in North America, including Canada, Mexico, right? And they were like, who are these guys? Who was part of the success of this project? And Ready Artwork came up. They searched, they found us online, and they reached out. It just literally came in as a lead in my inbox.
Yeah.
So that's how we got involved with a tech partner, and they invited us. Hey, you did a great job with Monrovia, and we want to see if you want to be involved in our project. we're the technology provider, but we're not marketers, we're not designers. So we need someone with experience. And then it helped that we were local. At the time it was called the Gold Line, right? We're local, so we understood the local needs, right, and communication of what where Metro was launching, because Metro was launching over a large area, but we were in the area as well. So a lot of things aligned, and we did our homework as well.
Yeah. So what made this project different from other public sector branding initiatives that we've worked on?
This was on another level. This was on another scale that we are used to working on, and it was the first of its kind, and the first of this scale. So with the tech partner, it was a combination of Uber, first and last mile, and it didn't involve Uber or Lyft or any of those other guys in collaboration. I know those guys were also kind of pushing their own programs as well, like we did with the Monrovia city. But this tech partner basically provided the platform that allowed ride sharing, van sharing, if you will. And it was a hybrid between your traditional Uber. I use Uber because everyone understands the business model. And then there's the bus, right? The bus system. And one of the challenges with the bus system is that unless you live directly on the bus route or within a block to 2 to 3 blocks, it starts to become a challenge because of how spread out LA is. LA is very flat, right? Unlike a lot of other metro cities that build upwards, a lot of our infrastructure is flattened out, and it's a challenge. We call it the first and last mile challenge. How to get to public transportation and how to get home. So this was really to bridge that gap from those people that live just a little bit out of reach of the bus line or the rail. Yeah. And the other thing is that with the traditional ride sharing, it can get very cost prohibitive, right? Especially if you're dealing with areas with peak hours and things like that, and you start using it for daily transportation, it gets very, very expensive. So equity was another piece, right? There are people that can't afford Uber, and good for them, right? They can use it they have a couple $100 or even $500, $1,000 to get around however they want. That's not typical for your average family in LA. So it was kind of a pilot program that allowed for really, really low cost. I think it was $1 at the time.
Yeah.
And so for $1, you can go on the app, you can book a ride, and the beauty of the program was that the tech partner provided was that there were virtual stops as well. So not only can you catch a ride at a traditional bus stop if you were already near there, but they also put what we call virtual stops. So you never had to travel very far. You can literally walk from your house to the nearest virtual stop. So they drop a virtual pin in the area that's walkable to your house, and someone can pick you up. And the reason why you do that is you can drive down cost, right? So instead of someone coming straight to the front of your house, they can have a van or a small bus that would come directly off of, away from the traditional bus lines and pick people up. They can either take you to the bus line, take you to the rail, whatever it is. It was meant to connect that gap we call first and last mile, right? And get people onto the mass transit program. So it was a very forward-thinking breakthrough process that kind of marries the technology and traditional bus line. And the other thing is the traditional bus lines, like what I mentioned, was that because the way they're structured, you can't always fill them. And so there were a lot of, there were certain areas where there were empty buses just driving around, right, at certain hours. So, and it becomes a domino effect, right? Then you have lower bus, they start pulling bus lines out. Then you don't have buses that come every 15 minutes, half an hour, right? Then it becomes unpredictable. And once that happens, then obviously people don't find it convenient, so they stop taking public transportation. So it's kind of the situation of how everything is structured that doesn't encourage people to take public transportation. So that whole idea was to kind of bridge that gap and kind of make everything more viable, cost effective, So that was the idea of the pilot.
Right, right. Yeah, you mentioned it's a pilot. So we're involved in launching this pilot. What was LA Metro's primary goal when launching this new on-demand service?
Well, the primary goal was to see if it works as a pilot program, right? Are people going to adopt it? Is it going to be, valuable to the residents? And how quickly can we get it up and running and adopt it?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it was awareness. A lot of it was branding. A lot of it was letting people know that there's this service that's being launched in their zone, right?
Right.
Because it's so big, it's cost prohibitive to launch something that full scale, especially when you're talking a pilot program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know we rolled out on phase one with like just a couple of zones and then added a few more zones. And I think it became like a 8 zone, Watts Compton, LA, Inglewood, North Hollywood, Burbank, El Monte, Highland Park, Altadena, Pasadena, Sierra Madre area, as well as, if I remember, San Fernando Valley, and then the UCLA area. So those are the 8 zones that it is now operating in.
Yeah, it wasn't that big. And I think it was also because everyone was like, that's awesome. I want it to. And then, it started growing faster than we can keep up, right? So that was one of the challenges as well, because it was so popular.
Yeah. So what kind of materials did we produce to help Metro Micro launch and gain this type of visibility?
Yeah. So, circling back, back to also what we talked about Monrovia was, the visuals as well. We worked with Metro's design team, and Metro obviously being a much bigger organization, collaborating with was a learning curve as well, right? They literally have like a website for vendors that, for style guides,
Right.
and for those of you that don't know what a style guide is, it's just basically guidelines of how to handle your brand, right?
Yeah. Like what to do and what not to do.
Right. There are a rule book, right? Of what, anytime you touch Metro, what are the guidelines? What are the Pantone colors, the hex codes, and everything for every color in there?
Mm-hmm.
What fonts to use? One thing that I share with clients and people is, and they always get amazed by is like the Metro name itself. Every time it's mentioned, even if it's a document, has to be kerned to a certain degree. So kerning is the spacing between each alphabet. So the word Metro has to be kerned a certain way with the R, right? So it's very tedious, but if you want to protect the brand, that's how detailed you have to get.
Right. They take really good care of their branding. Yeah.
Right. So what we did, circling back around, what we did was, we helped collaborate with the brand name. A lot of it was done already, but very thankful that we got to be involved in that process. The other piece was wrapping the design of the vehicles, the design of the uniforms, the visual piece that you see, right? And it was amazing to see when the vehicles actually got on the road. We were, every time we saw it, we took pictures of it, right? It was really cool. And selecting the colors, selecting the theme, working with the design team and presenting ideas. So down to once it got launched, it was a very, very cool experience to see that in the community.
Yeah. We also later launched their website to explain the program. In a lot of these zones, we also we didn't do like a full-on station domination like Go Monrovia, but we did a lot of posters, wayfinders, and in-transit boards and whatnot. So there was a lot of visual exposure within these zones with these visuals.
Right. If you went to a station and you saw anything that talked about Metro, that was us, right? We also have like advertising, so out of home when we say out of home in the industry, it's like basically anything that's not on your screen in your computer. If you go to a store and there's a poster or you see a billboard, right? Those are all things that we handled, as well as the digital media. And the other piece was we also helped with the improvement of the UI UX from the app and the App Store experience. So, there was a little gap in terms of how the customers transition. So when we created the website, when people click on whether they're interested or they want to download, then what happens after that, right? And then what shows up on the App Store once they click on download, what does that look like? So, we got a little bit involved, although, it wasn't like a full custom build because we're leveraging existing technology. We were able to kind of make it a little bit easier for the users to interact and download the app, right, to use it.
Right. Victor, earlier you touched a little bit about digital marketing. Maybe we can elaborate what we've done there. And then also, if you can touch a little bit on the dashboard that we helped build as well.
Yeah. So the ads, on social media, we ran ads, on Google, we ran ads. And, typically on a public projects, you run ads, like say out of home, right? You run a billboard, and how you measure it was like, okay, well, we put it there and for how many days and how much traffic seen it, and you call it a day. But what we were able to do is we're able to connect all those data points from the digital side. So anytime someone saw us through an ad or saw us organically on search, right, and then came to the website, or if they found us on third-party apps, there's a lot of third-party apps that aggregate like transit information, and they'll send people to different places, and it ends up on our website. So we're able to gather all those data points and not just present like a Google Analytics report, but we built a custom dashboard through Supermetrics. It's kind of a bunch of nerdy stuff that our team put together. Right?
Google Looker Studio,
Supermetrics. We tied all those things together, and we were able to show the stakeholders the daily ridership, right? How many people got on the ride app? How many people booked the ride? How many failed rides? So we were able to pull the data points from the technology partner as well, and tie it all together. And that was something really interesting that the stakeholders were really excited about. Like every day, okay, we're seeing a rise in ridership, and which zones are getting how many rides, and which, where are we getting failed ridership? Are people unhappy? We were able to measure sentiment on that. And then they were able to go back to their operation team and go, hey, we need to improve. This is the issue here, whether it's a technology partner side or whether it's operation side. We're able to identify that through this dashboard, and everyone was excited about it. Every time we kind of pulled it up and shared the progress, it really gave everyone a sense of direction and growth trajectory. Where are we spending the money? Where are we putting we need more riders. One of the challenges, we couldn't hire fast enough because we literally launched this in the middle of COVID.
Yeah. Yes.
It almost didn't happen. That's part of the story too. This project was like almost 2 years in the making for just the bid alone, right? Before we got paid $1, it was 2 years of work going through this whole RFP process and multiple meetings, driving out to Metro and, getting everything ready. And then at the last minute, we were supposed to start. They're like, oh, everything got put on hold because of COVID. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So literally 2 years worth of work almost didn't happen, almost didn't convert to fruition, right? So that was pretty crazy.
Okay, what were the key takeaways, after it got launched and everything? What were the key takeaways from public's response post-launch, Victor?
I think there was a lot of excitement about it, right? And I think on the branding side, people recognized the vehicles. There was an adoption, but at the same time, it was a very expensive program. So being a pilot program, we were engaged for 2 years and go, hey, our pilot is done. But from my understanding, Metro Micro is still running to this day.
Mhm.
and there's renewed interest in it. People have been talking about it. There were budget challenges that were out of our hand as well. It was getting expensive, and it was challenging to hire enough drivers.
Mhm.
So there were a lot of factors to launching a pilot, right? It's never as smooth as you want it to be.
Mhm.
So we every day we had to work through, and our tools of the trade are the digital, the branding, and anything outside of that was really out of our control, right? There were great partners, both internal and external to Metro.
Mhm.
There was a awesome like PR team.
Yeah.
I know we work with Patrick, Isaiah, Isai, on the PR side, and then Ariano and Associates for community outreach. So we met a lot of really, really great people as well, right? We'll tag them on LinkedIn. But, Monica, Wagner, I'm just like, there were a lot. Yeah.
Okay, one last question for you, Victor. What
Mhm.
advice would you give other transit agencies or city departments looking to introduce or rebrand their mobility programs?
I would say find the right partners, right? Technology is growing at a blazing fast pace, especially in the private sector. And one of the biggest wins that we've seen from our experience working in public is we're able to kind of bring that private experience to the public sector,
Hmm.
right? One of the biggest challenges in public is that the RFP process, um, it sets the barrier
Yeah.
so that a lot of the if you talk to the private sector, not just in the agency creative world or digital marketing world, just in general, like a lot of them's like, I don't even, I a couple of things, right? I don't even know how to get into that.
Hmm.
And which they have programs trying to educate people. But even after that, it's like, oh, it's so much work just to win a project, just to get in that circle, just to maybe find out 2 years later that I didn't win the bid,
Hmm.
right? So the return is really low. So it discourages the private sector from jumping in and bringing their experience and their know-how to the private sector.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know what the right answer is but I'm just saying from the private sector perspective, that's a challenge, right? A lot of people it's like, oh, that's cool, but my private customers might be smaller, but they're paying me, and I need to keep running, right?
Hmm.
So I know there's been efforts to kind of address those things, but if possible, bring in private sector to kind of bring that new technology and that speed. That I think that's the other challenge is that, and it's very stereotypical. People talk about too, like the private sector moves so slow, right? Because you kind of have to with public funds. So again, there's a reason for things, but then that's also the big challenge, right? Um, just getting things moving because in private, our clients don't have time. They don't have the budget to sit on a project for a long time. They want things done now. They want their return on investment now. And that's the difference between private and public. So if we could somehow bridge that gap in terms of speed and technology integration, I think the public will benefit greatly from that.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing.
Hmm.
That is a wrap for today's episode of the Raw Spotlight. We hope this behind the scene look at Metro Micro gave you meaningful insights into how branding and design and marketing play into a vital role in making public services more accessible and effective. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, or share it with someone in your network, especially anyone working in the city planning or public communications. Victor, if listeners want to connect with you, how can they reach out?
Uh, LinkedIn. I say this every episode. Make sure you mention you heard the podcast, so I know it's not spam. I'm also if you want to see like my hobbies and kids and work stuff. I'm active on Instagram, Facebook a little bit. I've been trying to get more active on TikTok. So TikTok is just mostly non-business stuff, right? I also want to give a shout out to Ronnie. Earlier I mentioned a couple of names, but obviously she's the head honcho. She was the project manager, the lead at the time, right? So make sure I don't want to leave Ronnie out of it. Ronnie. So special shout out. So yeah, connect. And then obviously, readyartwork.com. If you guys have questions, I'll be more than happy to help.
Great. Thank you. I am Emily Au, and this is the Raw Spotlight. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Raw Spotlight podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.